So hi everyone, welcome back. My name's Ian Anderson, for those of you who didn't make it to the AR talk from this morning. As most of you probably heard, I have a slightly weird accent. I'm an Apple certified trainer. I teach Final Cut Pro for Mac Pro Video for myself through Training Brisbane. I make stuff for Coremount. I've been a retoucher, etc., etc., etc. Download Roughly if you want a weird thing for your Apple Watch. It is free. Cool. So I'm here talking to you about 360 video and VR and stuff. And I should just mention that we were all kind of hoping that I'd be showing the new version of Final Cut Pro, which does 360 video, because it was demoed last month in California at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, where I got to go, where I shot some videos, which I'll show you very soon. But it hasn't been released yet. And I asked really nicely, but I wasn't able to get a copy because Apple don't give out the software before it's actually released. So unfortunately, I can't show you that stuff. But when we get to that, we will have time to do live demos and work throughs. I'll show you what's going to be coming soon. I should just mention also this talk is a little bit odd in the schedule because it's a 45-minute slot that has actually an hour of time allocated. So I might run over, or you might have a little break before the next session. So it's all good. So let's define VR versus 360. So a 360-degree camera like this one, this is one which I'll be talking about a bit, captures everything around it. Now it doesn't seem like that's a hugely revolutionary thing, but it is really different because you don't really need to see what it's capturing because it's literally everything. It is everything around you. And that's kind of weird. Often I have people coming up to it and doing this. It's like, you could do that from here or here. Really, it's just going to capture you anyway. So we're treating it like a regular camera, but it's really not. So 360-degree video from that camera can be viewed however you like. So on a desktop, on a laptop, move around with the mouse as you'd expect. On a phone, holding it, moving around, that works pretty well. On VR goggles, like these, moving around. Or on a much more expensive headset, like a Vive or an Oculus or whatever. And all of those are controlled by movement with gyros, so you just look around and it gets a live update. But that doesn't mean that all 360 is VR. 360 video can be used to create VR content, but VR is not the only way to consume 360-degree content. And I would expect that the VR is going to be a very small minority of how people are actually going to consume 360-degree content. Because people don't want to wear goggles. They're cool, but they limit you in all kinds of ways. So VR can also be completely non-360 video stuff. It can be just computer-generated stuff that's got nothing to do with reality, like the map of the thing of Mars, the nice 3D model of Mars which Buzz Aldrin gets inserted into. Obviously, we can't film that yet, though that'd be really cool. That would be lots of fun. Okay, so if you're doing 360 VR video, 360 video viewed in VR means you're wearing goggles of some kind. Could be really cheap, could be really expensive, whatever. It is going to be way more immersive, which is going to be really a great thing if you're chasing that. But you can't see the world around you, which really limits what you can do. It means it limits the places you can do it, limits how you can, really relate to it. And nausea is a massive, massive problem. So, really nice personal example. I have a PSVR at home. My mother-in-law wanted to visit the Taj Mahal. She wanted to visit it at some point in her lifetime. But it's kind of expensive and difficult and noisy to actually get to the Taj Mahal. And we found that on YouTube, people have done VR video around the Taj Mahal. And it turns out that if you actually plonk yourself in a VR video, it actually does completely take you there. With the first few seconds, it's like, oh, this is weird. And then after about a minute, you forget about it, and suddenly you're actually right there. And it actually feels really good, really weird, really different. And then the camera moves, and you just want to rip the headset off, because as soon as control is taken away from you and the camera moves without you asking for it, it's bad. So with VR video, there's a few things you've really got to think about. Number one, don't move. If you want people to view this through goggles, just tripod, monopod, something like that. Stay still. And the same thing in games. I've seen VR games. If you do get a PSVR, they've got a thing called Playroom VR, which is totally free, and they've got lots of little games. And one of them, the camera's mostly static, and every now and again it just creeps forward slowly, and you just want to chuck. It's just awful. Not everyone experiences this the same, and that's an issue. Anyway, you are getting back to a tiny audience. Not everyone has goggles. Not everyone wants goggles. These are, as I'll come to later, not expensive. It's 20 bucks. Yay, Aldi. But they are not something most people want to do. You lock yourself off from the world. Quality. Quality is a massive issue with VR, and I'll talk about this a bit later on. Because you're taking such a tiny part of the video and putting it up to your eyes as big as you can possibly see, you will see every flaw in all the video you shoot, and that's a problem. Cool, so if you are going to buy goggles, you got a few cheap options. Okay, there is Google Cardboard. So now there are lots of people making Google Cardboard type things. I do have a set of those, but it has another university's logos all over it. So I thought maybe I probably shouldn't bring it along to this very nice Griffith University sponsored event. But yeah, they're very easy to get. You get them free at expos, all kinds of things. Fancy cardboard. So the picture here is from Google. This is Google Daydream. It's under 100 bucks. It's fabric. It's comfortable. Comes with a little controller. Yep, sounds nice. All of these, you stick your phone in. So you got your phone doing the gyros and the sensor detection, all that stuff, and you're just staring at the phone. You can get third-party ones like this. All right, so this is a very basic one. This is 20 bucks from Aldi. So they won't have it now because I had it like a week ago. But you know how Aldi works. This is actually pretty good. I've seen a lot of bad ones of these. Often they're too heavy. Often they're too hard to get your phone in and out. Sometimes they get really fancy and they have a cutout for the camera, meaning they can do inside-out tracking and make it more useful for AR purposes or mixed reality maybe. But for the most part, these are pretty useful. Your main issue is that this little thing, which is meant to be a button, may or may not actually work. Won't work well on an iOS device. It might do something. It's meant to touch the screen, but essentially your controls are pretty limited. It'd be nice if more of these did voice. It's all right, as long as you don't have to wear these for too long. Controls, though, is the problem. I would love to just be able to say, right, next video, and have it just move to the next video. That'd make sense, but not too much of that going on. Right, so once you start spending more money, and these have been on sale, like PSVR, it's been 350 bucks. So if you've got a PlayStation 4, then you can get one of these, which looks like that, and will spend a lot of time in a box behind your TV, because it's big and heavy, and you will not use it all the time. It's actually pretty cool. There's quite a few games out there. There's probably a lot more support for the PlayStation than anything else. The resolution's not great. The response rate the refresh rate is fine, and that's a big issue, because when you're spinning around, it's really got to be 90 hertz or better for it to look good. If anyone wants to try this one out later, you'll see that when you spin around, it goes pretty smushy. Phones don't have 90 hertz yet, and that's one other big reason not to make a big investment in phone-style goggles. The phones aren't there yet. You can get a Vive. So that's the really nice high-end option. That's what's used in the demo over there with the gnomes. That's lots of fun. But because it doesn't do tracking from the inside out, so it doesn't have a camera on it, you need a big setup around the outside. If you want to do editing of VR video and you edit in Final Cut, you probably want a Vive, because that's the only official supported thing with the next version of Final Cut 10.4. Oculus Rift is also very good. It's very similar to the Vive in lots of different ways. Realistically, whatever's going to come out next year is going to be much cooler. The main problem that we've got is tethering. Tethering sucks. This is tethered right now. It's extremely limiting. You trip over it. It's dangerous. If we can ditch the cables, that'll make a big difference. They do need to be cheaper. You know, the Vive is over $1,000. They are getting cheaper. They do have better control systems. That's why they're kind of more expensive than some of the others. But yeah, we're always waiting for the next one. So mixed reality stuff, Microsoft have a bunch of mixed reality headsets, which are basically just like VR headsets, except they've generally got cameras in the front as well, so they can do mixed reality. Right now, they're mostly just VR. So I talked about AR this morning, and it's likely to be dominated by ARKit for a while. In terms of goggles, Apple do not have a solution in place for goggles yet. So Apple's kind of betting on the in-hand VR, AR for quite a while, I think. And I don't think that's a dumb bet, to be honest. I think goggles are great, but are always going to be a side note to the in-hand stuff. All right. So if you are viewing 360 video and you're not viewing it in VR, what are the strengths and weaknesses? Number one, Facebook and YouTube. Okay, YouTube is how almost all online video is shared. If it's not on Facebook, it's probably on YouTube, and vice versa. And you can put 360-degree videos on both. Now, that's not to say there aren't other platforms. Vimeo supports 360-degree video as well. YouTube has so many more viewers than Vimeo. It's just easy to share. It's easy to understand. And yeah, your friends will like it. Every single 360 photo I put up on Facebook is instantly met with, "That's so cool," comments, because it's not overdone yet. And that's really great. And it is easy to do. Okay, so means you might be viewing on your phone. It's way more fun. Just move your phone around to see where you are, and to look around a space by doing that, than it is to use your mouse and spin around on the desktop, which works, but isn't nearly as cool. Is the big wow factor that gets you there. Large audience. So if you're not going to make people wear goggles, then that's a big, big bonus. People don't want to wear goggles. And the great thing about a phone is people don't care if the quality is not very good. And it's kind of inherent with VR that in terms of actual pixel quality, it's not going to be very good. The cameras are small, the sensors are small, the data rates to get bigger quality just get astronomically huge. So this is 4K, like the camera I'm shooting on over there. That's easily manageable on a laptop with Final Cut and bigger machines with other editors. That's fine. But to do really, really high quality VR, you're looking at 8K, 12K, that kind of insanity. And that's too much for computers to really handle without using various tricks. So it's okay. If you aim for mobile phone consumption as your primary goal, doesn't matter. Use a cheap camera. Yay. Okay. Video quality. It will be a problem. So if you view 4K video, right, I shoot everything in 4K on that, and I do a bit of production. I have a 4K TV at home. Yes, you can tell the difference between 4K and 1080 on even a 55-inch TV. Looks great. Now, if you view average 4K video, and by average I mean like shot on a phone, put that on a big TV, it still looks pretty good. The dynamic range is a bit off, but it's all right. So if you zoom into that, it looks soft. You zoom into that and then view a tiny, tiny little bit of it really close to your eyes, it's going to look pretty nasty. Okay, and that's what happens. So if you're going to look at things, especially in goggles, you're really limiting what you can do. There are some really nice graphs you can see of all of this, but if you start with a 4K image, which is pretty much what you're going to start with unless you're spending $5,000 plus on your camera and more on your pipeline, then you're taking a 4K image and you're presenting maybe less than 1,000 dots, probably 700, 500 dots across, something like that, as how much people will actually see at any one time. Now, you can do better with photos. If I shoot video with this, it's officially about 3.5K across, but it's very, very close to 4K in terms of what it looks like. The photos are 7K across. Okay, so double the resolution for photos, and it does look much better. So if you can somehow incorporate photos rather than videos, then your quality problem does get a lot less. But video, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem that'll eventually go away, but for the moment, focus on Facebook and Vimeo and YouTube on a phone as your output, and you're fine. Do remember most of your audience don't actually care about quality. Okay, they're much more interested in the experience. They're much more interested in the experience right now on the device they're probably using, which is probably a phone. So if you're fussy about video quality, like me, remember that you're not like everybody else. Most of your audience does not care. Your job is to care more than them. And that's really easy because they don't care much at all. All right, that's fine. So what do you got? What are your options? If you spend under $500, you may be expecting it to be not very good. And yeah, you can get some not very good cameras. Like you spend $100, again at Aldi, for your random 360-degree camera, I can't expect it to be great because there's lots of weird workflow things that are going to get in your way. But you can actually get pretty good quality under $500. It will probably be processed on your phone. It'll be easy enough that the workflow will be simple because it's for consumers to use. And it might have live streaming support. Okay, so there are lots of reviews of lots of these cameras out there online. Really specifically, this is the one which I read a lot of reviews about. I'm denied for a while, eventually bought. 3 weeks later, I had one. It's really good. It's about the only place you can buy them is this site in China. It's made by a Chinese company, Xiaomi. It's the Miji Mi Sphere. I do not get a kickback. I should probably set one up. They're really good. I've showed this to people who have much more expensive cameras and they still really liked it. So this is a nice camera. The workflow is pretty good and I'll be showing you how that works later on. Other stuff, so the Samsung Gear 360, they've got another version that came out this year, Gear 367, 2017, something like that. It's okay. Video quality is not as good, workflow is not as good. Theta V, people are expecting it to be much better than the original Theta, which did good photos and bad videos, and unfortunately they were disappointed. Nikon Key Mission, people seem to hate it. Don't like it? Terrible. Okay. So bad interface, bad Wi-Fi, bad lots of things. And the Insta360 ONE, from what I've seen, the video is not as good, but it's got a couple of snazzy features. One thing which was mentioned is that you can't see the image unless you've got it directly plugged into your phone. Whereas with this one, I can Wi-Fi stream the image live, which is great. So I'll show you all that working later on. There are lots of cameras. There are new ones coming out all the time. They will be from companies you have not heard of. Consider the whole workflow before you dig into one of these. The app is incredibly important. It is often impossible to use them without an app. And if the app is bad or doesn't work properly, you're going to have a horrible time. Anyway, I do recommend this camera. It's really nice. This is $300 Australian, $200 US, plus shipping. So it's great. All right, if you want to spend some more money, like under $1,000 still, you will get at least good and up to much better quality and probably some bells and whistles in the workflow. This is the Garmin VirB. You see there's a much bigger gap between the two cameras compared to, say, this. That means you're more likely to get stitching issues. So things that move around the side of the camera are more likely to become problems, just with this particular camera. But generally, it's not a massive deal. The bells and whistles that the Garmin VirB comes with is this is designed for sports people. So you can put this on your helmet and it records your speed. It can record your altitude, I think. So it's insane. You're a skydiver, you stick this on, you get a little HUD display that sits at the bottom of the screen showing how fast you were going. That's cool. I wish I was active. I'd really enjoy that.
But he's folding active.
It's also cycling. Cool. And there's also the GoPro Fusion, which is coming out really soon. And that's an interesting one. So that's again, two cameras back to back, which is the most common form factor for a lot of these smaller cameras. It looks like they've nailed a few things, like the stitching, and it looks very good from the demo videos. That GoPro demo videos tend to look very good. They certainly have a heap of people who do Red Bull skydiving and so forth, which do great demos. We'll see. I think it looks pretty good. Both of these are about the 5.7K pixels across kind of size. So you do get more resolution, which does help you a bit to get rid of that resolution problem, but still distributing a bigger image than 4K is currently very difficult. So shooting bigger than 4K and then still distributing 4K is not going to help you a huge amount. And yeah, look, you can try to distribute an 8K video, Has anyone tried to view 8K YouTube at home? No? I did. There's a demo video the guy did. It's like, here's an 8K video, and I'm on the fastest connection I can get, right? I'm not on the NB for better or worse, but I have a cable, Telstra cable connection that's 100 megabit down. It is reliably 100 megabit down, and I could not play this video. It was not possible at all, and the vast majority of the country has got way less internet than that. So yeah, 4K delivery is all you've got for this foreseeable future. All right, the high-end options, and there's some people at the back who are getting some of these. All right, so if you spend more than $1,000, and this is significantly more than $1,000, this is around, what, 5 more? 4, great. Okay, so $4,000. This has got, I think it's 6 cameras all the way around. A couple of them do stereo capture, is that right? All of them do stereo capture, great. So this means, this is whole extra worlds of stuff I'm not even gonna go into, because you can do stereoscopic capture if you get a really fancy camera, and that's pretty cool. That's actually getting into the 3D VR business. So if you're going to deliver through goggles, then the special delivery pipeline, this is maybe going to produce much better stuff, much better quality. Some of the workflows are very, very expensive. Some of these high-end things are processed in the cloud. There is a camera here called the Jaunt 1, where 15 minutes of cloud processing costs $2,000. US. This is not designed for anyone who's not got huge amounts of money. Okay? I think you would be, unless you're doing some very cool projects, which I am sure the people in this room are, you guys down the back, I would not be surprised to see the camera superseded before the investment is recouped, because there's a lot of change. Cool, so there are some other cameras which I don't have pictures of. The Panono is a very cool, very silly looking camera, which is like a giant ball on a stick. So it looks like a mace. I have a very cool photo of, yeah, anyway, mace. If you see someone holding a mace, it's a Panono, but it only does stills, very high res stills. So it can capture massive resolution. Yeah, it's cool. Insta360 Pro is this one. Nice camera, nice workflow. Insta360, the company has got lots of 360 cameras. They make the Insta360 one. They have some free software you can use. There's something called the Aura, O-R-A-H. The output from that looked pretty cool, but it's a little hard because it's tethered to its box. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. And the Ozo is dead. There's a Cirque du Soleil demo floating out there, which was shot with the Ozo. It had a bit of stereo support. Very nice quality. Can't get it. So the high end has seen a lot of churn, like the low end has seen a bit of churn as well. But yeah, not so much around the mid-range. There's a few more coming out. Okay, so you've got your 360 camera. What do? How do you actually direct a 360 movie? You have to plan a lot. Okay, so it's so much, when you're doing traditional video shoots, you plan, you know, what's in front of the camera. And you say, right, who's going to move there? And you've got a crew behind you who are helping set up the lighting. You can actually light things. Lots of editing goes on. And VR chucks all that out the window, because you can't just chop and change all the time with VR. It's very much, you have to think about the camera being a person in the scene. So can you chop and change? No, you're a person. You can't edit very easily. So you have to plan everything. You have to dress the whole space. So if we're making a 360 video in here, do I want this as the ceiling? I don't really have any choice. I don't mind it, but some people are going to hate it. It's really just the whole thing. Is this a character in the film? You know, do people talk to it? Do they talk near it? Do they go over there? So this is like doing a play in the round as opposed to a regular theatre play. Now they're tricky. They build whole special plays and whole different sets of production for doing a theatre in the round. Le Boite still has productions in the round. Sorry, for those of you not from here, it's just over near the QUT Kelvin Grove campus. They do productions in the round, and you know, they've got to change the way that each play is presented. So it's different. Some things are easy, some are impossible. And the other critical thing is you've got to guide the viewer where they should be looking. Okay, because if you don't, people are just going to end up looking at the same spot. And you've got to give them a cue. Now, there's things you can do with audio if you've got positional audio, which is not necessarily that hard, but is a whole extra step in post. So guide the viewer where they should look. So if you've done game design, then you know a bit about this, about where people should maybe be looking. People look to the light. If you edit a photograph and you make a little bit of it brighter, that's the first thing people are going to look. And the same deal in video. If a light comes on over in the edge of shot, people are going to look over to it. So you've got to play with that. But if you're not using 360, there's something wrong. Now I'm going to sidestep briefly to this 360 video which I made. So last month, as I mentioned, I went to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which is very cool. So I was talking there, it was great. We got to see the new Final Cut Pro 10. With this video, you can look around, you can see what it's like to see an Apple demo. There I am at the bottom there. And you can see the VR stuff down there. The color setup with the HDR screens, so you can do full HDR grading and all this other stuff. You can just watch this video and spin around however you want. Now, this was really just to record an event which I knew wasn't going to be repeated. Sorry about the stupid ads. But what I wanted to show you is that if you upload a 360 video to YouTube and look at the analytics, you get this thing called 360-degree heat maps. Okay? And this tells you where people are looking. So the bright bits are where people want to see. People are looking at the people looking at the people, obviously. They're not looking at the sky very much, other than the, oh, what's up there? Nothing. Great, look back down. So this is very cool from a creative point of view. Now, having not actually paid much attention to this, there's a lot of people not moving. Are they bots? Is this autoplays from people who weren't watching anything? Because there's a whole lot of people not moving and they're looking at something really boring up there. So I'm guessing that's autoplays. You really can't trust analytics. Okay, so people are looking into the distance now, but no, that's mostly the non-looking people. All right, so this can be pretty interesting, and it's good to be able to know where you should be focusing your attention. Cool, so that is online. You can view that later on. All right, so there is a solution to the problem of, well, people aren't really looking around anyway, which is VR 180. And that's the thought is, well, look, we're transmitting 4K and at most 2K of this is ever being seen. So let's put all our efforts on the front. So VR 180 is half the image, just the front half. So that kind of solves a lot of your problems. Means you can have a crew, means you can use lighting, means your resolution goes way better, means you can still look around a bit, but you do lose the ability to turn around. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't know about this one. I'm a little uncommitted. I like the all-in nature of let's do something entirely new rather than the, well, I kind of don't mind feeling a bit immersed, but I want to have a set and all that stuff. So I don't know, but it's out there. It's apparently coming soon, said this winter, but it's been announced and there are cameras out there you can buy, just a limited set. But I imagine it's going to be easier to shoot. Okay, so one of the main decisions you want to make when you're shooting video is, are you going to be in the picture? Okay, because if you want to be in the picture, it's really easy. You get a selfie stick. So here's a recommendation. Go on eBay. If you want a selfie stick for a small camera like this, you go on eBay and you look for a selfie stick with monopod. So a monopod selfie stick. Now, monopod's like a tripod with one leg, right? Well, someone who didn't know that decided to call their selfie stick monopod. Now, the advantage behind that is, one, it's got a tiny head. So if you've got a Xiaomi camera which is really thin, none of this appears in your shots at all, which is great. Number two, most important thing, and surprisingly difficult to find in selfie sticks, socket mount thing, screw, 1/4-inch thread at the bottom to put this on a tripod. Because if you can put this on a tripod, it's got to be a long way from the camera. If you put it on a mini tripod, you get huge tripod legs in shot. If you put it like that, you'll still get tripod legs in shot, but they're really small and much easier to remove in post-production. So, monopod selfie stick. Now, number two, if you do get this camera, they make their own selfie stick. And you think, well, who cares, I've got this. But it comes with a remote trigger. So if you don't mind peering in the shot, it means you don't need to use the app, you don't need to spend a minute connecting to the camera, you just go click, and you worry about what it looks like later, because it looks like everything in the scene, because that's what every 360-degree camera is going to capture. So, if you want to do audio, external recorder. I'm using a recorder now, I've got a lapel mic on. Zoom H1 is the best portable recorder that's been around for a very long time. I'm sure there are others. You can use your phone. These things are great, but the audio from any camera is not going to be terrific. It's all right. Now, I'll come back to another audio thing you can do later. So, if you don't want to be in the video, where can you hide? This is the question. So if I'm recording video in here, under the table, I need to hit record or view this through my phone from under the table. And that's pretty much your option. You have to scan for a place that's near enough to the camera to be able to still control it, but you need to be able to hide. And look, you can't have a visible crew or lights, which means that you can compete on the same level as people who have a 10-person crew. And in fact, you don't need to find a place for 10 people to hide. If you're going to light the place, this has obviously got built-in lights, but if you've got a place like a house, you have to think in terms of hiding your lights. So that can mean, if the house is just a bit dark, putting the brightest light bulbs in that you can find, lighting through the windows, putting massive lights outside the windows to light it in a more practical sense. Think about all that stuff. All right. So, if you're going to shoot, don't move. Don't move. There are people who do a lot of moving videos online, and they're fine if you view it on your phone or if you view it on a desktop. But if you ever expect people to view it through VR, don't move. It's just going to kill a large chunk of your audience. You'd really do want to support the camera in a nearly invisible way. So I stupidly didn't have a tripod that had this thin a head, so I have a slightly visible thing. And while I was in the States, I bought this thing, which is it's from Manfrotto, and I can't remember what they call it, a hand grip or something. And yeah, a hand grip. Now, this is so close to perfect. So it's really thin, but the dial is visible, like the tightening dial for the 1/4 inch thing. The main strength of this is it is not a selfie stick. So if you don't mind your hand being in shot, this will make you look instantly more professional, because there's nothing that says I am a tourist who knows nothing than a selfie stick. And that sucks, but it's the case. So yeah, I did try this. I did shoot a bit with this. It's not bad, actually. It's okay. All right, keeping your horizon straight. That's a good idea, especially if you are going to move and just say, right, people with goggles, don't bother. Then keeping your horizon straight, keeping the camera upright is a good idea. This camera does have stabilizers in it, so you can move around and the horizon will mostly be okay. And in fact, in the new Final Cut 10, there are horizon straightening tools. Now, I do mention Final Cut a bit. That's just because I have seen it. Premiere has a bunch of VR tools as well, VR 360 tools, which they bought from a company called Mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E. So this is going to be covered in Final Cut or Premiere without too much hassle. All right, stitching lines. Whenever you're looking at a camera on the edge like this, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have stitching problems. All right, that's because this is the area where both cameras are capturing, and it has to blend it together. Different kinds of stitching will be better or worse. And for me, the best stitching I've got has been in the app. So when I download controlling with the app, and I choose to download to my phone, it stitches it for me. And it looks really good. It looks really good to the people who've got Insta360 Pros. They've been impressed. So I'm happy with that. It's the only one I personally own, so I should be happy with it. But people who know better have said, look, that's really good. Great. But ideally, just, don't deliver a monologue here. Just here is fine. Right? Just beware of the seams. The other issue you can have is if you're outdoors, if the sun's on one side and not on the other, you're going to get a light differential between the two lenses, and blending that's pretty hard. Think about pointing the seam at the sun. That would avoid that. So important content in your videos can't be too close. So there is more distortion the closer you are. Here, we'll definitely have stitching issues. Move back about 50 centimeters or so. Keep the content about that distance at a minimum, or it'll be A, really fisheye, and 2, stitching issues far more likely. But if you go too far away, you won't be able to see it, because remember, resolution's a problem. So, in the mid space is where you want to really be. Recording for a while is okay. I can go for an hour or something on this, but external battery, really good idea, because the batteries are mostly internal on these consumer models. You'll need to stop and plug it in for a while. And you can't really keep this in while recording because it's going to be visible. So yeah, issue. They're cheap enough, buy multiple cameras. Why not? But yeah, embrace the limitations. There are limitations. As I'm fond of saying, constraints inspire creativity. So don't fight the limitations, just go with them. All right, so here's a side note, which I have no demo stuff for, but there is a kind of audio you can record called Ambisonic audio. And that means this is audio recorded with position information, and not just left, right, but up, down as well. So this ancient recorder, so I showed you a Zoom H1, the Zoom H2, which has been around for a really long time, has actually got enough microphones inside that with a very recent software update, you can record a 360-degree sound field. That's awesome. You do need to use more software in post, and you have to consider panning, because one thing you might do in post and 360 is changing the center of the view. So you can't do that unless you're doing your processing in a way that you can also rotate the audio along with that. Otherwise, you're sunk. But yeah, no, there are, I think there's a DAW called, I can't remember, Reaper, that will let you process ambisonic audio with a free plugin that's available. Facebook have a plugin they've given away for free. So yeah, but anyway, maybe you don't need it. There's just background audio, you don't need to worry about directional audio. Some cameras do record directional audio. I think the Theta does. So, if that's important, consider that. So the workflow then. Stitching. So the cheapest cameras, because I have to keep it simple, will do it for you automatically. This is what you shoot. Really important if you're doing video production. This movie and the one which you get produced after you do the stitching are not 16:9. They are 2:1. Just that little bit wider. Expensive cameras will take quite a long time to do the processing because they do a slightly better job. That's probably one of the only problems. If I'm processing on my phone, it does tend to be slow. Just more transfers are slow because it's Wi-Fi. Because this is the issue for me. If I pull the micro SD card, copy it off, I get the top. If I let the camera process, I get a perfectly stitched version like that, which is what I need to edit. Now, this is using a plugin. So this is doing the stitching part in post. If you want to do stitching, to convert this into this, you won't find those features in the new Final Cut. They're relying on the camera software to do it, and a lot of camera manufacturers do provide that. So bear in mind, stitching you may have to do with third-party software. Okay, so if you're going to do editing, Final Cut 10.4 works fine, the latest Premiere works fine, 2:1 timeline, HD is way too small, 4K bare minimum. You can't distribute larger than 4K with any kind of ease. And you can do stills, so I'm mostly talking about video, but stills, they're much simpler. It's just one frame, so it's not that hard to deal with. And the latest Photoshop lets you do it. Yay! So this works really well. You'd open up the massive image, do 3D spherical panorama, new panorama from selected layers. And you can export a panorama as well, and it keeps the metadata which you need to present that on Facebook or whatever. Now, most of the time, you're probably just going to present a photo unedited because you're sharing it for your friends or whatever, and it's mostly fine. But great to know you can actually get rid of something that shouldn't be in shot or blur someone's face that you really can't risk showing. Okay, metadata, speaking of. when you output a video, you need to use a free program with a stupid icon, which they provide for free, called the 360 Metadata Injector, and then it just adds a little tag to your video, and then when you upload it, it gets it right. I don't know why they're making you do this. Vimeo have a checkbox. This is 360 video. You tick the box, and presumably you don't have to worry about this nonsense. But yeah, that's what happens. So if I have a look at the desktop, you will have your movie, and then you'll have the injected version of the movie, which is exactly the same, not re-encoded or anything, but has the metadata changed. So it's not the most exciting. They both look the same if you play them. They both look like that, except this one, when uploaded, will actually work on YouTube and the other one won't. So you just need to be aware of that. So for distribution, Facebook's fine. I find when I look at a photo or something in Facebook, it just looks a little weird. It looks kind of more warpy and a bit more fisheye. This is Shay Baker, who directed a movie which was advertised on posters down at the keynote yesterday called Blue World Order. He wrote a book. He made the movie based on his own book. He made it in Australia, in Canberra. How is this possible? Anyway, so 360 video I took at the Brisbane premiere, which was cool. Anyway, but yeah, Facebook, easy. People like it. YouTube works, not in Safari on the Mac. But you can use Unity. You can make an app pretty straightforwardly to project your content in a sphere. There's a free demo out online somewhere that shows you how to do it. So there's another way to go. If you don't want to distribute in 360, then you can make a tiny planet. That's a tiny planet. It's cool. I mean, you know, this is what happens when you walk around with a selfie stick. You are perpetually giving people the thumbs up, which is fine. I like it. All right, but yeah. And the other thing that especially the GoPro Fusion is trying to claim is just taking a crop of the 360 view. So basically what someone would look at through goggles, maybe a slightly wider angle than that, and then that becomes actually what you distribute. You don't show the full 360 video, and they're marketing it as over capture. So effectively, it's like a GoPro you don't have to aim. Just captured everything around you. So yeah, nice, but quality is not going to be huge. But again, for mobile, for sports stuff, who cares? Just being there is more important. But yeah, tiny planets are okay. I don't know if everyone will think they're really cool once everyone starts doing them. They're nice. Cool. So yeah, there are cheap 360 cameras that are pretty good. Shooting's not hard, but you do have to prepare. You do have to know about the limitations. Editing's not hard. If you can edit 4K today, you can deal with 360 content. So long as you get the newest version of your chosen editing platform and that isn't Avid, you'll be fine. You can distribute. Don't need goggles. Manage your client's expectations. Now, by that, I don't mean tell your clients, I'm sorry, this looks bad. Okay? If your clients think it looks awesome, then it looks awesome. But if you tell them it looks bad, they will think it looks bad. And this is not a problem you can actually solve. So just, manage their expectations a little bit. If you've done regular 4K videos for them and you do 360, just warn them, look, it won't look quite as crisp and nice, but people will still love it. Because it will. It'll look great. It does have the wow factor. You can still do something interesting and unique. People are playing with this, but again, I don't think people have quite mastered it yet. There is time for a live demo. I think there is time for a live demo. And if anyone wants to see what it looks like in a headset, I have a headset and you can spin around and I can show you stuff. But let's do a quick demo first. All right, so we're going to turn this camera on with one of the two exciting buttons. Yep. And turn the Wi-Fi on. So it's generating its own Wi-Fi network. You go to the app, which is a free app, which they do keep updating, and yes, it's on Android as well. You will need a gruntier Android device to make some of this stuff work. It is offering the phone, which the camera I connected to recently, but I'm connected to this Wi-Fi. So it's telling me to switch Wi-Fi networks. This is one of those things which is really tedious when you're doing a demo or you're at home doing tests, but is a non-issue when you're outside because you're not connected to Wi-Fi when you're outside. So you pick up the name of the account, which is that. It beeps. And there you go. All right. This is about a 1.5 seconds delayed. Now I can turn this sideways. That's going to be better. Is it going to realize? No? Normally I can turn this sideways. Okay, so if I wave, a little bit delayed, but it's not too bad. So I can control this. I can move to stills or videos. If I hit recording, it beeped, and now everything's being recorded. Anyone want to wave? Yeah, there we go. That's good. You can zoom in if you want to. Now this is a low-res preview. The camera is actually recording a low-res and a high-res movie at the same time. So this is obviously the cheapo, nasty low-res, but it will look better at the end of the day. You can scroll down and see exactly what I've got. That little cord thing always shows up. I keep forgetting to hide it. So I'll stop that. It says it's processing. You can flick to stills. It will do time lapse. It'll do interval shooting. It'll do all kinds of things. But essentially, it's exactly the same. 1, 2, 3. There we go. There we go. Great. We got the photo. So it beeps a couple of times for that. And whoops. So you can come back and see all the things you have actually recorded already. You can see the stuff that's recorded on the camera. You can see stuff that you've transferred to your app. And you can send things out straight from the app, or you can save them to your local photos library as well, and then it's easier to get them to your computer. So yeah, it does become a kind of a staged process. Shoot them, transfer them, copy them. It's a bit tedious. I wish I could just rip it off the card. But there is some PC stitching software. The Mac stuff's not out yet. So we're waiting. It's all right. So I think it would be much more interesting to play videos from last night. So as I move around, I can see around. So I tilt up, I can look at the ceiling. You can see there's basically no stitching problem. Like I can look around. Oh no, there it is, because it's really close. See the fork, the knife there? So that knife right there, it's too close, and that's where the stitch line is. Most 360-degree cameras have at least this kind of issue. Most are actually much worse than that. The ceiling is actually pretty good. I can't spot stitch lines in the ceiling, which is odd. Sorry. There we go. And so I've got a few videos here. You don't want to see lions. Something that's worth doing is just think about how you can use the camera to do something weird. Like hold the camera in a bush in Vancouver. You know, you can get some weird, interesting things like that. So yeah, don't put your selfie stick like this. It's kind of a, come on, tilt around. It's not tilting around on the screen, sorry. Okay, so if you tip your camera on the selfie stick, you will get a giant selfie stick in shot. So don't do that. It does look a bit weird. Yes, this is Alex Gollner, who does a lot of 360 stuff online, smart guy. And this is actually at the De Anza College, where they first launched the Mac. Ooh, it's really cool. We just kind of went there randomly and then found out what actually happened there. It's like, really? Wow, very exciting. So yeah, it does absolutely cover, you know, things like dinners ridiculously well. You actually get, it's so much better for memories than everyone just posing for a photo. And for that reason, because I think this is bringing things to the table that you don't normally see with regular capture, I do see it staying around for a while. It's cheap and accessible. everyone does kind of like it. And there you go. So if anyone wants to view this through goggles and have a look around what it's like to visit Apple, that's one infinite loop right there. Any other questions? Great. Thanks so much. Pleasure.